Hello and welcome to Leadership 101, a series designed to help busy youth and children's ministry leaders invest in their leadership development. We really hope that this content will help you to develop your gifts and sharpen your skills and flourish as a leader. So let's get into it. It won't have escaped your attention that everyone in your church has an opinion about your youth and children's ministry. Your senior leaders have an opinion. Your young people have an opinion. The parents of your children have an opinion. If you're married, your spouse definitely has an opinion. And very often, those opinions are suggestions for how you might do things a little differently. And on the occasions where those suggestions become, let's face it, criticisms, you are faced with three options as to how you will respond. Option one is to respond like the wasp. And everyone hates wasps, right? You are the wasp when you respond like this. Whenever anybody shares an alternative view, you are quickly provoked and you strike back. You go on the defensive. You give an immediate retort, a long list of reasons as to why you do it this way and why it still remains the best way. But when this happens, you stop listening, start defending, and thus you cease learning. Option two is to respond like the hedgehog. You curl up in a ball and you hide from the feedback. And unlike the wasp, you don't strike back with a retort, and instead you give the impression that you are listening. But in reality, you're figuratively putting your fingers in your ears. This is so often because you have confused a critique about what you do with a personal slight about who you are. And so to avoid feeling hurt, you try to let it bounce off you and forget about it as soon as you possibly can. Option three is to respond like the sponge. In other words, you soak up the feedback. Your posture is hands open rather than arms crossed. You're wise enough to receive feedback from every angle, even from those who may be significantly less experienced and knowledgeable in your field. You are discerning enough to know that in almost every criticism, there exists a nugget of truth if you would be humble enough to seek it out. And because you're always listening, you are always learning. That's why the wise King Solomon once said, "The way of the fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man is he who listens to counsel." But the moment that you put your fingers in your ears, you put a ceiling on your growth. You know, the level to which you limit feedback is the level to which you limit your growth. So how can you gather the most constructive feedback? Well, I reckon you gather it from 360 degrees. What does 360-degree feedback look like? Well, imagine a compass with you in the middle. In your role as a youth worker or a children's ministry leader, you will have leadership relationships with people at every degree on the compass. North are your senior leaders. East and west are your peers, perhaps the other staff members at your church or the parents of your children and young people. And south are the young people or children or the team members that you lead. And because each of these groups sees things from a different angle, they therefore have a different perspective and are thus uniquely positioned to offer you a valuable perspective on your ministry. 360-degree feedback is the art of seeking out the thoughts of people from every angle. Feedback from the North Point may take the form of a weekly meeting with your senior leaders or a more in-depth annual performance review. And can I just say, if you don't have either of those things in place, ask for them. Take the initiative. Invite your senior leaders to come to your youth or children's group on a Friday night or whenever it is. Ask them to watch how you lead. Ask them to Watch how you preach your message and engage with your young people. They may not be youth or children's workers themselves, but they will have a unique perspective that, if you seek it out, could be a catalyst for your growth. What about feedback from the East and West? Well, what do the parents of your children and young people think? What do their children feed back to them after they've been out at group with you? Have they managed to internalize the message of the night? Did they have a good time? This is a perspective that only the parents will have and will remain elusive to you unless you actively seek it out. And finally, it's surely so crucial to get feedback from the South, isn't it? The best people to speak to about your children's and youth ministries are your children and young people. But are you listening? You know, at our youth group in Malvern, we've made it a priority to listen to those we lead. We will consult our young people about the content of our sessions, about the trips that we go on together. On 2 occasions, I've even asked our young people to fill out feedback forms with questions like, do you feel welcome and valued here? Do you feel free to be yourself? Do you feel more open to God than when you started coming? Which one thing would you change? And so on and so forth. And perhaps that sounds like a really boring thing to do in a youth session, but it demonstrates to your children and young people that you value them, that you care about them enough to value their opinion. So remember, the moment that you put your fingers in your ears, you put a ceiling on your growth. So don't be a wasp or a hedgehog, be a sponge. Actively go in search of constructive feedback from every possible angle, and when you get it, soak it up, listen, respond, and grow. And in the next episode, we'll explore the art of giving feedback. Let me wrap up this episode by saying thank you for all that you are doing to serve children and young people where you are. I cannot conceive of anything more important that you could give your life to than passing on the gospel to the next generation. So keep going, do not give up, because what you are doing is important.